You won't believe the shocking turn in the story of one of Married to Medicine's most beloved couples, Toya Bush Harris and Dr. Eugene Harris. After 17 years together, the couple who once embodied the perfect reality TV marriage suddenly found themselves facing a heartbreak that no fan could have anticipated. For years, they had been the couple fans admired most, two people who seemed capable of weathering any storm life threw at them. Through financial struggles, parenting challenges, and on-screen arguments, Toya and Eugene always seemed to bounce back, proving time and again that their bond was strong and unshakable. Their relationship had become a symbol of resilience and partnership, the kind of love story viewers rooted for at every turn. But appearances can be deceiving. Beneath the surface of smiles and shared moments, cracks had begun forming. Cracks that, over time, widened into something much more destructive. Toya, known for her emotional openness, often spoke about missing Eugene when his demanding career kept him at the hospital for long stretches. Eugene, a dedicated physician, worked tirelessly to provide for his family, but his long hours left Toya feeling increasingly isolated. These moments of frustration seemed small at first, arguments about time spent together or attention given, but they quietly piled up, creating an emotional distance that neither could ignore. The real shock, however, came in a way no one expected. It wasn't about arguments over schedules or financial strain. It was a betrayal that struck at the heart of everything they had built together. Toya discovered that Eugene had been unfaithful. And it wasn't just idle gossip or rumors circulating online. She caught him herself, in the act, with another woman. This wasn't just a fleeting mistake. It was a profound violation of trust that left Toya reeling. The moment she saw him with someone else, it was as if the foundation of her life had been pulled out from under her. The love, sacrifices, and shared history that had defined their marriage suddenly felt meaningless. Shock, heartbreak, and disbelief collided, leaving her to confront a reality she had never imagined for herself or her family. It wasn't simply the act of infidelity that hurt. It was the revelation that Eugene, the man she had trusted with her heart, her life, and the well-being of their children, had betrayed that trust so completely. Toya, strong and decisive even in the face of unimaginable pain, knew she had to respond. She confronted Eugene, and the conversation that followed was intense, raw, and emotionally exhausting. Anger, sorrow, and disbelief came in waves, each emotion hitting harder than the last. After years of building a life together, of facing challenges side by side, Toya realized that the trust she had placed in her husband was broken beyond repair. For now, she made the difficult decision to step back, demanding space and time to figure out her next move. But it wasn't just the affair that drove her decision. The pain she felt had been building for years. Years of emotional neglect, of feeling invisible in a marriage where Eugene's career always seemed to take precedence over her needs. She had voiced her feelings countless times, expressed the longing for connection and attention, yet often felt unheard. The emotional weight of balancing her own life, her marriage, and her family while feeling overlooked had become overwhelming. The affair, painful as it was, became the breaking point that forced her to reevaluate everything. Fans who had watched their journey were stunned. The couple who seemed invincible, who had faced challenges together and emerged stronger, now seemed to be unraveling. Toya's public posts hinted at transformation, messages about self-love, growth, and personal healing, but also made it clear she wasn't willing to stay in a relationship where her emotional needs were consistently unmet. Eugene, in contrast, responded with distance, sharing vague social media posts about protecting his peace and focusing on his career, leaving fans wondering whether he was attempting reconciliation or retreating from the reality of his actions. It was a dramatic shift for a couple that had always been open about their struggles. Previously, their arguments, though public, had seemed like minor bumps along the road. Now the tension felt irreparable, rooted in both the betrayal and the years of unmet emotional needs. Fans began to question everything they had assumed about Toya and Eugene's marriage. Perhaps the issues glimpsed on television weren't merely for drama, they were reflective of deeper, ongoing struggles that had finally erupted into a crisis. The affair was the trigger, but the underlying problem had been decades in the making. A marriage strained by distance, exhaustion, and miscommunication. Toya's heartbreak reflected not just a single act of betrayal, but the accumulation of emotional neglect and unfulfilled expectations. And as she began to focus on herself, taking steps to heal and reclaim her life, Eugene's silence only deepened the mystery. The world was left wondering, could this marriage survive? Or had the weight of years, compounded by the shock of infidelity, reached a point of no return? After the devastating discovery, Toya's world felt as if it had been turned upside down. The pain wasn't just sharp, it was all-encompassing, touching every corner of her life. She had spent nearly 2 decades building a life with Eugene, investing in their marriage, their children, and their shared dreams. And yet, in one moment, all of that investment seemed to teeter on the edge of collapse. But even in heartbreak, Toya's resilience shone through. She realized that staying silent or pretending everything was fine would only prolong her suffering. She had to reclaim her life and take control of her own narrative. Toya's first step was emotional clarity. She poured her thoughts into social media, carefully choosing words that reflected not just hurt, but also strength. Her posts weren't vindictive, they were honest. She spoke of growth, self-love, and the importance of prioritizing one's well-being. Fans who had followed her journey immediately sensed the depth of her pain, but they also saw the courage it took for her to speak her truth so publicly. Each post was a reminder that she was no longer willing to compromise her emotional health for a relationship that left her feeling invisible. Meanwhile, Eugene's response was strikingly different. Where Toya's words radiated vulnerability and resolve, Eugene's presence online was marked by detachment. His posts, cryptic and deliberate, spoke of protecting his peace and focusing on his own journey. He avoided the direct acknowledgement of the betrayal or the emotional consequences of his actions. Fans were left guessing. Was Eugene trying to buy time, seeking personal healing, or simply shielding himself from accountability? His silence created a tension all its own, and the distance between the two only seemed to widen. While social media speculated, behind closed doors, the real struggle was unfolding. Toya wrestled with conflicting emotions: love for the family she had nurtured, grief over the trust that had been shattered, and fear about what the future might hold. Every decision felt monumental. Separating from Eugene wasn't just about ending a romantic connection, it was about asserting her right to be seen, heard, and valued. It was about sending a clear message to herself. She deserved a marriage where her emotional needs were recognized, not postponed or ignored. Fans began to pick apart their history, revisiting scenes from the show with fresh eyes. Arguments about finances, disagreements over time together, and moments of subtle frustration, all previously viewed as minor television drama, now seemed like warning signs. Toya's increasing openness had always highlighted her longing for connection, but Eugene's relentless focus on his career had often left her feeling secondary. The revelation of the affair forced both the couple and the audience to confront a painful truth. For years, the emotional imbalance had been quietly eroding the marriage. As Toya focused on self-healing, she made concrete decisions to protect her well-being. She began setting boundaries, prioritizing activities and relationships that nourished her spirit. Therapy, time with close friends, and self-reflection became pillars in her recovery. This period of introspection wasn't just about processing the affair, it was about understanding the patterns of neglect, unmet expectations, and emotional exhaustion that had long shadowed her marriage. It was about identifying what she truly needed and refusing to settle for anything less. Eugene, on the other hand, seemed increasingly removed. His public silence was complemented by private withdrawal. Insiders suggested that he had emotionally distanced himself long before the affair, struggling with the pressures of his public persona and the demands of his profession. He had grown accustomed to avoiding conflict, retreating when problems arose instead of confronting them head-on. To Toya, this pattern of detachment, compounded by the betrayal, was unbearable. She couldn't ignore that the man she had loved for nearly 2 decades had been absent in ways deeper than she had realized. As tensions escalated, fans watched with bated breath. Every post, every public interaction, every subtle hint from friends or family became fodder for speculation. Could Eugene repair the damage? Could the emotional chasm between them ever be bridged? Or had the accumulation of neglect, the betrayal, and the unspoken resentment reached a tipping point beyond recovery? For the audience, it was no longer just about the affair. It was about understanding the complexity of a marriage tested not by a single act, but by years of unacknowledged struggle. Toya's decision to contemplate separation, moving even toward divorce, signaled a profound turning point. She wasn't reacting impulsively. She was responding to decades of feeling undervalued and unseen. Her journey now centered on autonomy, empowerment, and the pursuit of genuine happiness. She began to imagine a future that wasn't tied to the shadow of Eugene's absence or the betrayal that had broken her heart. Yet, even as she charted a path forward, the story remained far from over. Eugene's role in the marriage, his accountability, and his willingness to confront the fallout would ultimately shape the next chapter. Fans could only watch and wait, wondering if there was a chance for reconciliation or if this marked the beginning of the end. The stakes were higher than ever, not just for the couple, but for the family and the life they had built together. In many ways, this chapter of Toya and Eugene's story highlighted the raw realities behind public personas. Reality TV may show us the laughter, the love, and the drama, but it can also obscure the silent struggles that define relationships behind closed doors. And in this case, those hidden struggles erupted in a way that captivated, shocked, and saddened viewers around the world. As the weeks unfolded, Toya's transformation became increasingly evident. Her social media posts, once tinged with grief and confusion, began to carry a tone of empowerment and self-discovery. Every word, every image seemed to underscore a central truth. She was reclaiming her life, her voice, and her sense of identity. Friends and fans alike could see that this was no temporary phase of reflection. It was a deliberate and courageous journey toward independence. For Toya, survival wasn't enough. She wanted to thrive, and she was taking every step necessary to make that a reality. Yet, while Toya was actively rebuilding, Eugene's path remained uncertain. His continued public silence and cryptic statements hinted at introspection, but they also left a cloud of ambiguity over the future of their marriage. Fans speculated endlessly. Was Eugene genuinely remorseful, or was he retreating further into self-preservation? Was there a desire to repair the relationship, or had he quietly conceded to the idea of separation? The tension was palpable, and every social media post, every interview, and every private sighting became a potential clue to the next chapter. Behind closed doors, the couple's interactions were tense and emotionally charged. Toya's decision to step back wasn't just about distancing herself, it was about setting boundaries that had long been absent. She confronted Eugene with unwavering clarity, articulating the emotional toll of years of neglect and the shattering impact of his betrayal. She made it unmistakably clear. The future of their marriage would depend on profound changes, accountability, and a willingness to address long-standing issues, not just a superficial apology. For Eugene, this confrontation was both sobering and isolating. The realization that the trust he had taken for granted was gone struck hard. He had to face the truth that his career-driven focus, coupled with emotional detachment, had eroded the foundation of a relationship that had once seemed unshakable. The affair had been catastrophic, but in many ways, it was the culmination of years of unaddressed distance, miscommunication, and unmet emotional needs. Eugene's challenge was now clear. He could either fight to rebuild or accept that some wounds might be beyond repair. The looming possibility of divorce cast a shadow over the family. Both Toya and Eugene had to consider the impact on their children and the life they had built together. Co-parenting, dividing assets, and navigating public scrutiny added layers of complexity to an already painful situation. Toya's decision to prioritize her well-being didn't mean she wanted to hurt her family. Rather, it was a recognition that her children deserved a mother who was whole and emotionally available, just as they deserved a father who could confront his shortcomings. Fans who had followed the couple for nearly 2 decades were left grappling with a mix of hope and heartbreak. Many rooted for reconciliation, clinging to the memory of the love and teamwork Toya and Eugene had once displayed. Others acknowledged the reality. Some fractures, once deep enough, cannot be fully mended. Every social media comment, every public observation became a reflection of collective curiosity, empathy, and concern for a couple whose personal struggles had been played out in the public eye. As Toya continued to step forward, her actions sent a clear message. She would no longer be defined by betrayal or by a marriage that failed to meet her needs. Her healing became both personal and symbolic, a statement to anyone who had ever been undervalued or overlooked in a relationship. She was learning to navigate life with self-assurance, resilience, and the confidence that she could thrive independently. Eugene's journey, however, remained a work in progress. He faced the dual challenge of reconciling his own mistakes while also understanding the depth of Toya's pain. The public eye amplified every misstep, leaving little room for quiet reflection or private reconciliation. Whether he would rise to the occasion and fight to repair the relationship or continue down a path of withdrawal remained uncertain. What was clear, though, was that the trust he had fractured would not be easily restored. By now, the story of Toya and Eugene had become more than just the tale of an affair. It was a testament to the complexities of marriage, the consequences of emotional neglect, and the resilience required to reclaim one's identity. Their journey reminded fans that love, even when genuine, is not immune to the pressures of life, career, and personal shortcomings. It was a stark illustration of how easily even the most admired relationships can unravel when emotional needs are consistently unmet. As the final chapters of this saga began to unfold, Toya's voice emerged stronger than ever. She was no longer defined by what had been taken from her, but by the choices she was making to ensure a brighter future. Eugene's silence, while frustrating to fans, underscored the reality that his journey was still inward, still uncertain. And for the audience, the tension between hope and heartbreak remained unresolved. The ultimate question lingered. Could Toya and Eugene find a way back to each other? Or had the combination of betrayal, emotional distance, and unspoken grievances reached an irreversible point? Only time could answer. What was undeniable, however, was Toya's transformation. From a wife grappling with unimaginable pain to a woman asserting her power, prioritizing her healing, and redefining her life on her own terms. And so, as viewers watched the story unfold, the lessons became clear. Love is fragile, trust is priceless, and personal growth sometimes requires walking away from what once seemed unbreakable. For Toya, the journey toward healing had begun, and for Eugene, the path to redemption, if possible, was still ahead. The next chapter of their lives was uncertain, but one thing was certain. Both had been forever changed by the trials they had faced together. The story of Toya and Eugene Harris is a raw, unfiltered reminder of the highs and lows of marriage under the public eye, the importance of emotional connection, and the power of self-respect. As fans continue to speculate, empathize, and reflect, one truth remains. Toya's courage to choose herself above all else is the legacy of this chapter, a testament to resilience, clarity, and the pursuit of true fulfillment.